Hello, it's Jay here, and welcome to episode 2 of our artist interview series. So today we have Jesse Kuch on the show. He's been DJing for many years, also owns his own record label, and has played all around the country. Enjoy. Hey, Mr. Kuch, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on board for the artist interview series. Thanks for popping in for today.
Great to be here, Jay. Really good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. So just to begin with, can you tell us about yourself, how long you've been DJing for and what kind of music you play?
Well, it's actually been a really long time, actually. I'm 35 now, and I started playing around, I guess, in my mid-teens, about 15 or 16. And I always had like a taste in the deeper end of like 4/4 music. So even when I was playing psytrance, it wasn't banging, full on psy. It was always the progressive end. And over my whole career, it's slowed. As I've got older and older, my music style has slowed considerably to probably the slowest I've ever played now. And it's like definitely don't play psytrance anymore. I play house and techno. But through the years, I've had like experience playing a lot of different styles. It was kind of like whatever was happening at the time and what I was getting into or whatever. Been playing in bands and stuff too, so I've got a pretty long musical background, played piano, all that sort of jazz too. And I was playing bass in a band at a time, and we were going to these gigs that would be like live music at the start of the show, and then at midnight they'd switch to the Doof. So like at a pretty young age, around the same time, I started going out to my first sort of outdoor parties in Cairns, where I lived at the time. Grew up in Cairns, up in the tropics. And Cairns isn't a very big city, but it's a very musical city, and it's party town because there's lots of backpackers and there's not actually much to do. But you do have this like amazing outdoor natural environment. So that to me is just like the most perfect place to have outdoor parties. And eventually like the band thing kind of stopped happening up there, and everyone just went to sort of doofing, and like I'd been doing it since I was a teenager. I was like huge on tunes, so I was always collecting tunes. This is sort of back in the psytrance days. Full disclaimer, I did play psytrance at one stage. But like after a while I was kind of collecting heaps and heaps of music, but I wasn't actually playing it. And I gotta give a shout out to another guy, Dwayne, my friend, DJ Player One, still an amazing psytrance DJ. Also like has a couple of new techno projects and stuff as well. But Dwayne's just like one of the main people in Cairns, always has been, travels all over the world, plays overseas, plays the big festivals like Rainbow and everything like that too. And one night I remember we'd been sort of out in town at some gig, and he had to go to work in the morning at like 5 a.m. and we got back at like midnight maybe. And he had decks at the house, and he's like, look, here's how to queue up on the CDJs, because I only knew on the vinyl, in those days it was CDJ 100. And I don't know if you ever used a CDJ 100, but they weren't like a 1000 with lots of options and cool pitch shifts. They were just like 0.01 on the pitch shift. You had to basically jog all the time just to keep a tune in time if it wasn't the same BPM as the other tune you were playing or whatever. So they were like really kind of hard to use, really, when I think about it. But he like showed me how to queue up, and like because I had a bit of DJ knowledge from the vinyl thing, I like just stayed up all night while he went to bed to go to work. And I remember by the time he got home from work that morning, got up for work that morning, like 5 a.m. or something, I'd like figured out how to mix. And I wouldn't say I was the best DJ in the world. I was actually using like 4 CDs at that stage because it was pre-USB as well. So, I had 4 progressive psytrance CDs, which was kind of like, the deeper end of psytrance anyway. And I just mixed those 20 tracks or maybe 30 tracks all night just to figure out how to work it, And I actually like got my first Doof booking the next week because Dwayne was chucking a little party on the beach, and he's like, well, you can mix now and you've got the tunes. Why don't you come up and just have a go in the afternoon? And I did. And I think I pretty much played every weekend after that for about 5 years or something. So yeah, that would have been kind of, I guess, around 2000 3 or 4. And yeah, I've pretty much been playing tunes with varying degrees of busyness ever since. So yeah.
Wow. It's amazing how you went out and you wanted to learn, but then once you knew how to do it, the opportunities just came to you because you were connected with the right
Yeah,
people.
yeah. And that's the thing, like I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for Dwayne, Zach, my friend Ian, who I started Open Records with, who is no longer part of the label, but like these guys just really pushed me in the start. And I always had like the network's everything when you do this. It's particularly in like the Doof scene, you're not going to get a gig for how many labels you've released on unless you're like super fresh, amazing. You're going to get a gig for being on the dance floor. You're going to get a gig for mixing with the people, making friends, being a good person. That's what I like about like Doof culture in particular, and like the more underground end of party culture, is that like, yeah, you have to be good and play good tunes and, you know, walk the walk, whatever. But like a lot of it does come down to the fact, if you're a good person and you like show your like where it counts on the dance floor, then people will give you a chance over that dude who just shows up for the party for his set, then goes home after and doesn't put something back into the community. I think that's the thing. I've always made a point of trying to contribute constructively to the community, whatever community I'm in, whether that's, the Doof scene, whether that's, the Brisbane club scene, whatever, and it's like, that's where I've got so far. And it's all to do with other people giving me chances or things I've created myself,
Yeah. What has been your favorite one and why?
I've thought about this question a lot, and I can literally probably rattle off 10 that really stand out to me. But I think really the one that like I'll never ever forget was the Eclipse Festival in Cairns in 2012. Like, Cairns is a small place. We used to have sort of big parties, but they were like 2,000 to 3,000 people big, not 15,000 people in the middle of the most alien environment ever. Like, it was 5 hours from Cairns in Cape York. It's basically the desert up there. It's got some trees, but it's like partying on Mars with like 15,000 people from all over the world. And there was a giant eclipse in the sky, like the sun blacking out for 5 minutes ish, and like that alone is just one of the most ridiculous spectacles you'll ever see. But I was lucky enough at that stage, I was pretty much top of my game in Cairns, and I was like, I got put on the Sun stage, which is the main stage of the festival, on the night before the eclipse, before Oliver Lieb and after Behind Blue Eyes. So I kind of transitioned from the psytrance that had been happening during the day into the techno that was happening that night. And like, it's every time I like shut my eyes and think about it, I just remember this sea of people, like as far as I could see back to the back of the dance floor, with the biggest function one I've ever played on, and every little tweak on the knob, you could just feel it, because it was like proper biggest sort of stage you can really play in like what we do in the Doof culture, and yeah, that one just sticks out to me.
And you played a lot of club gigs as well. How does it differ for you as a DJ when you play a Doof? Like, how do you play a Doof compared to how you play at a club? What works?
Well, sonically they can be quite different, but it's funny because when I play at Doofs, and this has been a thing for at least a decade or so, I've always played a clubbier sound than, say, a lot of DJs do. But in a club, I play almost just pure house music now, and that's where I'm at. Like, I've actually been playing a bit of techno again lately, which I haven't done for a long time too, and that's been really enjoyable as well. But I think clubs have an immediacy, right? Everybody's there; they're there to dance. There's no going back to camp and partying. There's no sitting down at the side with your mates, having a great time while listening to the tunes. Well, not as much anyway. It's maybe a bit of smoking area action or like sitting in a booth or something. But you come out to a club to listen to music, to dance. So your set is purely geared towards that. And like when I think about a club set, I'm there to like smack it, you know, or play a really good warm up, or get the room ready for the next guy that comes into the room. If you're playing on the open set, for instance, like every set in a club has a kind of purpose. And it's something I actually learned a lot more coming to Brisbane and playing in the clubs here, because Brisbane, you know, it doesn't have the biggest scene in the world, but it's got a healthy one, and everybody who's there are really consummate and really passionate. A little bit of chin stroking goes on. That's cool. That means people love music, you know. But Brisbane taught me a lot about like how to do a really good warm up, and how to like, you know, do the slot for what needs to happen in the club at the time. Whereas like at a Doof, you're still thinking like that, but you're not thinking about it in the way you are in a club. You obviously you want to make people dance. That's still the goal at the Doof as well. But you can be a bit more spacious with your stuff. You got to be conscious that you're outdoors. So like music can sound really different outdoors. A track that bangs in a club in a little box, like might not bang in a Doof when it has, you know, 500 meters to spread the sound out. You might want something sonically that's a bit wider and a bit more warm and these sort of things. So it's like an environment thing. And like for me, I think I'm best at a Doof when I'm on a transition set. So I'm like helping bridge a gap between, say, techno and house. You know, I might be the guy in the middle playing a bit of progressive techno into the kind of house. Or, you know, like I said about Eclipse, it was like the guy before me was playing progressive psytrance. The dude after me is one of the biggest techno names in the world. So you've got to think about that. And the other thing is, in a club, you always mix in at the end of your set. I've seen people punch on over that at a Doof. No joke. Like you always like stop at the end. It's a bit more of a performance, you know, like it's a bit more of a like at a festival, it's a set. At the end, you always like stop, let everyone clap, give a bit of appreciation to the next DJ. And like that's just a funny little thing that I've noticed, but it's something that like every person who crosses in between the Doof and their club scene sort of comments about. Do I like let it stop here because I'm in the club? I'm like, no, you keep mixing in. Like think about like any tips I could give, and it's really something that comes with experience. And I think it's like healthy to play to a empty club sometimes, because you see these individual reactions on a couple of people to your music. It's healthy to get those sets where you stuff it up and clear the dance floor because you played the wrong thing, because it makes you realize, hang on, just because I like these tunes and they're great tunes doesn't mean they're going to work at this time, you know? And that's the really best DJs are like constantly reading. They're flexible enough to mix it up if like it's going wrong, you know? And like that's something that you really learn with experience. And that's probably one of my bigger assets as a DJ, is that I've been doing it that long and pretty much stuffed up the way I can stuff up as many times as possible. I've done amazing sets. I've done things where I think I've missed the mark. So I think about it afterwards. And if I do notice that one of my sets wasn't as good as it could have been or whatever, I always think about after and go, what could I have done better? What would have worked then when that didn't, you know? And that's where like you can't just play bangers all the time and expect to get results. Like you might be able to do that at certain clubs, but you put you in another club, not going to happen, you know?
And Mr. Kuch, how do you experience a weekend full of gigs?
This weekend's a perfect example. You know, I've got a gig on Saturday playing with Butters at the Rabbit Seat Lettuce launch at X Cargo. Then I'm at Butter Kid at Sub Rosa for a day party. And then I'm literally getting in a car and driving straight to elsewhere on the Gold Coast and playing down there. And then I've got to be at work by 1 p.m. the next day, you know? And at my work, there's no stuffing around. If I come in like hungover, it's going to affect my performance. And that's not something I want to do. So sleep. Biggest thing you can possibly do as a DJ, get the proper sleep. You know, if you eat properly, sleep properly, and treat it professionally, you know, you can do this kind of stuff and it's fun. Like I'm going to have a great time this weekend. I know I am. I'll be buggered by the time I get home from work on Monday night. I know I will. But like, it's not going to be any drama for me finishing up at elsewhere in the sort of the early hours in the morning, going to my friend's house, crashing out for a while, and then catching a train to work the next day, you know? And it's like, you couldn't do that if you're out there partying too hard. You have to look after yourself. And if you really want to make DJing a serious thing and a career, that's the number one thing you have to do before you ever get successful, I think.
And what is your favorite part of being a DJ or DJing?
Well, there's a couple of things, I think. Like, one is I love the music I play. For me, it's about sharing the best possible music I can find, the stuff that makes me excited. Whether that's deep music that you wouldn't like think about getting excited about because it's very subtle and, you know, spacious and not super thingo, you know, not super banging, or whether it's full party rocking tunes. You know, like for me, sharing music is the heart of it. And like, there is no better feeling in the world dropping great tunes to a rock and dance floor. Like when people are feeding energy into you and you're putting it back out to them, it's like this, it's kind of this flow state, you know, it's actually my happy place. And sort of this is the second part of the answer is that like, it's a big emotional release for me playing tunes. You know, if I've had a crap week and I like head on to my favorite club, whether that's Sub Rosa, the old Capulet in Brisbane, or, you know, elsewhere, which is actually probably my favorite place to play in the world right now. Like that dance floor is just so up for it. If I have had a bad week, and it's happened several times in the last, you know, few months where I haven't had the greatest week, then I've gone and played a rocking gig, and like it feels like I just wash all this stuff away, you know. And it's like, I guess because I've got so much passion attached to this music, and then you have this like sort of euphoric experience with a dance floor. You're making people happy, you know, you see the smiles on people's faces, you have the people come up to you afterwards and say they love it, or you have some guy just trying to Shazam the tunes because they like want to know what you're playing. Like all that adds up to this like really healing and amazing experience. And I think like people do music for a variety of reasons. Some it's completely professional, some it's like whatever, but I think everybody gets a real joy from playing their music to an appreciative crowd. You know, it's an exchange of energy, it's an exchange of like positive vibe that really I can't think of many things in the world that are better, to be honest.
How important is it these days to build your brand as a DJ?
Look, don't have to rush into this straight away. Like I know like a lot of DJs, especially young people, because it's the way young culture is now. It's like people have grown up with Instagram and all these things as part of their DNA. You know, like these things didn't even exist when I was started DJing. Legit, we were on IRC chat and MySpace, you know? And it's like, now you've got like a bajillion social media channels, you've got all this stuff. You're better off slow building your brand legitimately than you are like coming out and having a manager and a logo and all this stuff before you like really even learn how to DJ.
You've also done some extra things outside of DJing. So you've run your label Open Records, which is one of the most prolific out there actually. So how long have you been running that for?
The first release was in January 2007.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's like, you know, good 13 years ago. And the only reason I've been able to play in Japan and in other international places, Bali, stuff like that, is that I've been like, I have a record label. So, you know, people over there have heard, and that's been like the key to my, like, why I've been able to tour and travel even within Australia. Stuff that sells the best is my mates in Australia. So these days, I'm really just focused. I would way rather put out music by Doppel or Thank You City or Funk Form or any of these guys that are actually like my best mate, some of my best mates in the world. Like I love those dudes, love them as people. And like, why would I bother looking at like some egotistical dude from overseas who wants 300 euros for a remix when the best artists that I know and the guys that I actually listen to on a regular basis are like my homies right here. I'm stoked to say that I've like I was saying, I've got some tunes now. I just finished a remix of Thank You City with my friend Will Olsen, Boy with Boat. He lives up the road. We've been hanging out heaps as mates, and we actually didn't even ask to do the remix. I just had the files on my computer and kind of started like one day on a weekend, and I didn't expect it to really turn out to be anything, but like Will in particular is just a genius. And I think we like gelled together well as people, as friends. We have similar ideas about music, and we popped out what I think is actually a really cool remix. I plan out blocks for things. I'm like, okay, I got 3 hours to do open records tonight. I've got 3 hours to work on Beatport for the gigs on the weekend, you know. And by being organized and healthy and like keeping my mind on track, I can fit all the stuff in I want to fit now. And like, I'm really looking forward to like showing the world a bit of music that I actually did for the first time in 13 years of running a label. So super cool.
Good to hear. Now, final question. What is your favorite ever dance move?
This is hilarious. I got a story about this. It's called the praying mantis. I don't know if you can see, but it's definitely these ones. It's really hilarious. It's like, for years I just did it, right? But like now it's become this running joke among my friends. I remember we were at Chihuahua Town recently, and it's a really cool festival in Victoria. Not a huge one, only like 1,500 people or so. I don't know the exact number, but intimate. But like honestly, music-wise, probably like my favorite event in Australia for tunes. Like this year they had Jiggler, which is like probably my most played artist of the last couple of years. And I'd just seen him a couple of weeks before at Elements. Everyone was laughing at me doing these ones because I think it was the first time a lot of my longtime friends had really seen me lose it on a dance floor because I was that pumped that I got to sort of see Jiggler, you know? And I like was copying it for weeks after. Jesse doing this, you know, like blah, blah, blah. But then at Chihuahua Town, it was so funny. I'm like in the crowd, middle of the crowd with some friends, and Butters, one of my best friends and the guy I do melt with, which is something we haven't just talked about, but it's a party in Brisbane. Butters was looking for me, you know? And he's like, man, I was just waiting for the drop so you'd go like this and I'd see your arms and I could find you. He found me. We're having a laugh about it. Wait for it. 10 minutes later, my mate Jace comes up to me and he's like, man, I couldn't find you. And I knew as soon as the tune dropped, you'd go like this. And I was just like, man. So yeah, definitely the praying mantis. It's my thing. If you like go on my Instagram, you can see photos of me doing it all the time, whatever. It's just a thing. I do it, but I'm pretty partial to the old, like, these ones as well, like brush the top shelf. I don't know, it just happens. But the one thing I really like hate is when I'm DJing, I get like chicken arm. I always hold my arms up a bit. So I've like had this thing in my head recently where I'm like consciously trying not to do chicken arm. But man, I tell you now, if I like forget about thinking about it, they go straight back to chicken.
Oh man, that is classic. I've seen you do the praying mantis so many times. I didn't realize it was a tool to be able to find you on a dance floor though. That is something that I will use when I come back.
It's like my own doof stick, you know? Like it's who needs a doof stick when you got the praying mantis?
Unreal. Well, Jesse, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the Artist Interview Show today. Thank you for coming on board.
Man, absolute pleasure. Great chatting to you. I haven't seen your head in a while, so it's been really fun to catch up as well.